With the exercise selection, we need to choose exercises for a resistance training program, and that requires knowing what are the movement and muscular requirements of the sport. What is the athlete's exercise technique experience? What is the equipment available? And what is the amount of time, training time available? So, uh, what are the movements and muscles that are for the sports? Is it track where they run fast only in the left? They're not going to need to do any frontal plane, transverse plane type things, other than possibly to maintain stability and single support. What is their technique experience and what is the equipment available? Okay, do I want would the snatch be a great exercise for some athletes? Yes, but if they've never even cleaned or done a scoop throw with a med ball before, we're going to get more benefits out of some other things before we go and do the snatch. The equipment available. This is huge. It doesn't matter if you're wanting to do snatch if you don't have a barbell or dumbbells. So you need to know what is available and the amount of training time available. For instance, if I take two different sports, I worked with track in the off season, and we would have an hour and a half to 2 hours, 3 to 4 times per week, 4 to 5 times per week, essentially. And most of that time was spent with me in the weight room, getting them ready for the end season. With soccer, another sport that I had, we might only have 30 to 45 minutes to lift, and the rest of the time was going to be spent towards conditioning. And with the track team, I should specify that it was the throwers and sprinters that I was working with at that time. So we had greater strength and power necessities. The distance, they were not lifting for 2 hours. So if I only had 45 minutes for the soccer team, I wasn't going to try and give them the same workout that I gave for the throwers and take 2 hours and crunch it into 45 minutes. It wasn't available. I needed to go with what the biggest bang for my buck would be. With the exercise type, we need to break things down and talk about the core exercises and the assistance exercises. Now, the core exercises are not, the sit-ups, and things that are targeting the midsection. They're the core or the big rock exercises. By definition, they recruit one or more large muscle mass areas and 2 or more primary joints. Now, they're always going to receive priority in training because of their direct application to the sport. If I do this exercise, I'm probably going to be seeing an improvement in my sports skill. Assistance exercises typically are recruiting smaller muscle areas. They involve only one primary joint, and they're considered less important to improving sport performance, but they're usually to help build the other core exercise so that we're looking at moving along towards the goals. Now, within the core, there are structural exercises and there are power exercises. Now, a structural exercise is going to emphasize loading the spine directly or indirectly. Now, what do we mean by direct or indirect? Well, is the load sitting on top of the spine or is it not? So, for instance, a back squat or a step up with a barbell would be examples of direct spinal loading. We're doing taking the hips and going down low and standing back up with either one of those exercises. And the barbell is on the spine. It is a direct loading. Well, if we're looking at the squat, if we do let's say a trap bar deadlift, if you look at the mechanics of the hip, knee, and ankle, they're going to be closely mirroring the squat. However, the load is not on the shoulders. It is down at the hands. So we have an indirect loading of the spine. Now, power exercises are typically structurally exercises that are performed very quickly or explosively. So you can do pretty much any exercise for power. But not all power exercises. All power exercises are structural exercises, but not all structural exercises are power. Let's say it that way. So if I do something fast, it's for power. If I do something slow and heavy, it's for strength. And typically we can use the same movement to do both. We need to have a movement analysis of the sport. So you know what the planes of motion are, you know what the actions are going to be. we can start looking at quote unquote sport specific exercises. And the more similar the training activity is to the actual sport movement, the greater the likelihood that there will be a positive transfer to that sport. And that concept is called specificity or specific adaptations to imposed demands, which is also the said principle. So ideally, if we look at a sport and we see an exercise and we see how it's done, hopefully there's going to be some carryover, some transfer. So we look at this is from the NSCA. We look at ball dribbling and passing with the chest pass with basketball. We could see how the close grip bench press, the dumbbell bench press, triceps pushdowns, reverse curls, and hammer curls all kind of mimic the ball dribbling and passing. Ball kicking. Well, if we look at unilateral hip AD and abduction, single leg squat, because we've got that front leg, our plant leg is in single support. We've got a forward step lunge, just as you would step out to kick. The leg or knee extension as the kicking leg as you go from all the way back through kicking in the ball where you'd be doing that knee extension. And then a leg raise, which would mimic the drive through of the leg from the hip. We look at freestyle swimming, including the starts and the turns. So if we look at the swimming and the pulling down action, we would see that pull-ups, working the lats, working that extension would be important. The lateral shoulder raise, getting arm up out to the side, a forward step lunge, how you're driving off of the platform, an upright row, strengthening the trapezius. Barbell pullover, we can see how that mimics the action of the glenohumeral joint as you're pushing through the water with that freestyle. Single leg squat, mimicking how you would be driving off of in a single leg support rather than a double leg support, as you would be in the jump, diving into the pool and kicking off of the wall. We look at vertical jump, snatch, power clean, push jerk, back squat, front squat. All of those, of course, mimicking the movement at the hip and the knee joint. And then we see a standing calf raise, which is improving the ankle joint and getting its action in. We see a racket stroke. Well, a flat dumbbell fly, looking at the forehand, being able to have the range of motion to get through. A lunge, obviously they're typically stepping forward. Bent over lateral raise for the backhand. Wrist curl and wrist extension, mimicking and helping with the wrist flick. Rowing. Of course, whenever you look at the rowing, we see power cleans, clean pulls, snatch pulls, bent over row, seated row, angled leg press, horizontal leg press, deadlift, stiff-legged deadlift, and good morning, all mimicking how the person puts force into the oars and slides along the rail and is trying to put that oar through the water as hard and as fast as they can to meet that water resistance. Running or sprinting. Snatches, cleans, front squats, lunges, step-ups, leg extensions, leg curls, toe raise, so dorsiflexing powerfully. And of course, there would need the heel raise, as that is what produces 20% of the propulsive forces as you are sprinting down the track, according to biomechanical research that's out there, biomechanical modeling research. Throwing or pitching, well, they lunge out, the single leg squat, be able to catch themselves after they do the lunge. Barbell pullover, mimicking the pattern. Overhead tricep extension as the elbow tends to extend. Shoulder internal and external rotation.